Room 237 is a Jumperscape audio production. You've entered a place of fear and dread. Welcome to Room 237.
Hello, and welcome once again to Room 237. We're happy that you are here to join us. It's once again me, James.
And me, Ashton.
And we got a banger for y'all today.
Today we watched A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, directed and written by Wes Craven, produced by New Line Cinema.
Yeah. We are just running through the classics here. Except Ready or Not, that was kind of...
That wasn't a classic.
Had to mix it up a little bit. But of course, before we get into the film, if you'd like to connect, chat, talk horror with us all day long, you can go ahead and go to discord.gg/jumperscape, join into the horror community channels, and we will be there to answer all of your itching questions. And if you, of course, would also like to support what we're doing, like our stuff, you can head on over to patreon.com/jumperscape. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
So, A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really good movie.
It's really good. In fact, actually, it has a 95 Rotten Tomatoes score and an 84 audience score.
This is a movie that I actually hadn't watched since I was probably like 15.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of shocked how much it held up in my brain. Like, the vibes are immaculate.
The vibes are immaculate. So I've never seen this movie before. I have, however, watched I actually watched in one day the entirety of every kill count of every Nightmare movie. Just so I could know what was going on. Because I was getting the gist that there was something a little kooky about this series. And I don't, quite frankly, I don't remember the whole day of watching them, but I felt it felt more serious. The movie felt more serious than I thought it was. I thought he was funnier.
No, that's the thing. Freddy in this movie is very much not that funny. He's very menacing.
Well, actually, I have a fun fact about Freddy in this movie. So Freddy in this movie has less than 7 minutes of screen time the entire film.
Which is a major contradiction to later movies where he's basically the star.
Yeah,
honestly.
I genuinely, so based on watching all those kill counts, I really thought Freddy was like a nightmare. So he's the guy who haunts you in your nightmares, and like you'll wake up and whatever he did to you is still done to you, or whatever.
If you die in the dream, you die for real.
Yeah, that thing. But I thought he like would just pop out of bushes and do like stand-up comedy or something. Like, no, for real, this is what I thought Freddy was. Like, he would just be like in like a spooky way. He'd like jump scare you and then be like, "Oh, you're scared." Like, something like that.
It's not like super far off from how it gets later, but like, except the fact that these movies actually get pretty psychedelic. Like, the dream sequences are really, really cool. And like, they're a bit grounded in this movie compared to how they get. But every dream sequence in this movie is iconic. Every single one. Like, there was not one that I forgot. Like, every single dream sequence is so well thought out. It feels like your typical nightmare, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Down to, like, I swear, I don't know if this was intentional. I feel like anytime there's a dream sequence, the character that is having a nightmare runs really slow.
Yeah.
Like,
I do think that was intentional, because they run they run how like I do in nightmares, where it's like
I'm basically walking.
You feel like you're like running, heart pounding, and then like you look behind you and it's like, oh, they're still just barely behind me.
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys can't see me, but I'm basically running in slow motion.
It's a bad habit that I can't break, where I start pantomiming and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a podcast.
I talk with my hands, please.
But this movie opens with a dream sequence.
Yes.
And so right off rip, it's like you see the iconic boiler room, which I swear as a kid I had nightmares that took place in that same boiler room.
And fun fact about the boiler room, I'm getting so many fun facts out of here right out the gate. So this boiler room was shot in the basement of Lincoln Heights Jail in LA, and about like a week or so after filming, or was it a week? Hold on, I have it right here. Yeah, very shortly after the production wrapped, the building was condemned due to asbestos.
Uh-oh. Sorry, cast and crew.
that was the real nightmare.
Man, but I swear, like, it's weird because I would have nightmares with like that boiler room, and it would always be like I'd go like down some stairs in like my elementary school.
Yeah, and that's how it kind of works in the film, is like,
and I didn't see this movie when I was that young.
You always just go down some stairs and suddenly you're in the boiler room. And that's pretty good. That was the one that was one of the things that I really was like, oh, this is like real dream world. Real dream world. I'm in very familiar spaces until suddenly I'm in an unfamiliar space.
Yeah, but the character we follow is Tina. Honestly, kind of our false flag final girl throughout the first like act of this movie. And you know, she wakes up and then her mom's like talking to her, and like, is it just me or was the dialogue like so horribly hard to hear? Because
I made you put on we turned up the volume and I made you put on closed captions because I was like, oh no, this is an 80s movie where you can't, it's like watching Star Wars again. Like,
yeah, but like it got better after that one scene.
I think that one scene was just messed up or something.
Well, there's a lot of dubbing in this movie. Not all of it's very good. There's some great scenes where a character will be yelling something and their mouth just isn't even moving.
Yeah. So yeah, but I that was really weird. I think it was also the mom was trying to put on an accent, I think, and it made her hard to understand as well. I was like, what does she say? I can't understand.
What is it with actors in like older movies always putting on like a vague accent?
How old are we talking?
Like,
how old of a movie are we talking?
1984.
Well, I mean, yeah, like 1984. I don't really know what they're doing. Probably, I feel like they're not a lot of main cast actors. It's probably someone this is their first like breakout role, and they're trying really hard, so they put on an accent.
Put on an accent. That'll be perfect.
Yeah, but in older movies, that was just the Hollywood norm, is to have the Midwestern. Or the Mid-Atlantic, I'm sorry, accent.
But she gets woken up by her mom, and it's time for her to go to school. That's where we meet our merry band of friends. You got Tina, you got Glenn, who's played by Johnny Depp,
which is weird.
I should probably actually read the other actors' names. You have Heather Langenkamp playing Nancy Thompson. Amanda Weiss played Tina Gray, and then Sue. That'd just be Sue.
Yeah, that's just Sue.
Apologies, live on air. Sue Garcia is Rod, who is completely in the wrong time zone. He plays like this kind of bad boy type, like I'm in a band kind of character, but he just comes across as like a 50s greaser.
Well, and that I guess like I read something about how that's like a thing for Wes Craven. I don't know what it is that he really likes the 50s or something, or he really likes just, you know, like ruining the 50s for people, but that's like a thing for Wes Craven. He likes that.
Well, like he it was a weird thing
Mhm.
because Rod is such a douche, but also like kind of a likable dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, could have maybe hate him worse because
Yeah.
like early on, yeah, he's just a kind of obnoxious, but like as the movie goes on and stuff happens to him, you're like, this poor guy.
This
Like,
poor dude. He gives like Danny Zuko vibes to me.
interesting.
Like I feel like that man would sing Grease Lightning.
Yeah, probably. But in their surrounding is something I'm still not over. Okay, there's palm trees everywhere. There's like these just clear like kind of Spanish architecture. And this apparently is in Springwood, Ohio. We're based in Ohio here. We love our palm trees and our Spanish architecture.
Hey,
They're everywhere.
Hey, remember there used to be palm trees in the mall though. There used to be palm trees in our local mall.
Were they real?
Yeah, they planted palm trees in the local mall in the last when they redid the mall like a while ago. I was probably in middle school. They got rid of the palm trees. They were in the what is that place called where all the food is? Food court.
Food court. Whoa. I was expecting some random like phrase I'd never heard in my life for like a location, but no. Food court.
I just couldn't remember the word for food court. Yeah, but even in the scenes where there's not palm trees, I was like, this is clearly California. Like
yeah, you don't even need the palm trees to tell you this does not look like Ohio at all.
The sun don't shine that way in Ohio.
No, and the one saving grace they have is they don't explicitly say in the movie that it's Ohio, so you can just kind of ignore that part. But it is a fact; it's supposed to be Ohio.
It's definitely California.
It's most because that's what's funny is there's two different examples of this working and not working, and that is like Halloween disguising California to look like the Midwest in autumn, and it works.
And it works.
It works. Like you buy it. Like it feels like it.
There's a couple parts of Halloween where I was like, the sun don't shine like that in the Midwest. But other than that, it's like when they film like a movie in London or something, and they're supposed to be in America, and you're like, the sun isn't there in America. That's not where the sun is. That's not what the sunrise looks like. That's
not this foggy all the time. But
so they go out pretty much like immediately after they go to school. They go to Tina's house because she's scared from her nightmare and her mom is out of town.
Yeah.
So they're having a little sleepover party. Johnny Depp, Glenn, and
we can just call him Johnny Depp.
I'm gonna just call him Johnny Depp. But so him and Nancy and Tina are sitting there and they're talking about Tina's nightmare, and Nancy's like, I literally had the same guy in my nightmare.
Yeah, and she kind of goes about it in kind of a really rude way. She's just like, and he had those long, they were more like finger knives.
And this is where I started getting that weird. So throughout this movie, okay, I got this just weird feeling about Johnny Depp's character. I don't know why, but he was so suspicious to me.
I mean, I just kind of saw him as like a baby.
No, like in this scene, I think this scene is really what like made that like become a thing for the rest of the movie, because he just doesn't talk. Like the camera keeps randomly panning to him, and it's like he's listening, but he's just not saying anything.
Yeah. I mean, like later it's because they play him as the guy who's in this but hasn't seen any of this shit, so he just thinks everyone's nutty.
I mean, yeah, it's just like, I feel like if everyone was describing a dream and a nightmare where they all had the same guy in their nightmare, I'd be like, what?
Huh?
can I get the nightmare juice? Like,
Exactly.
I want to be a part of the party. Who's this man with finger knives? Like,
But him and Rod don't really get along that well. The funny thing is Johnny Depp, I don't remember what he said, but he said probably the most like tame antagonization of Rod possible. And like the 50s greaser he is, Rod freaks out and pulls a switchblade on him.
yeah, that was really weird. Well, and so when they were hanging out, they heard a sound outside, and they immediately the girls pushed Johnny Depp out the door because he's the man and he's got to deal with whatever scary thing is outside. And this first jump scare, which is just Rod tackling Johnny Depp.
And he gets him at the 3-yard line.
It scared me. It scared me.
She like popped out of her chair.
I did. I was like, my note here is, and the fake out gets me. I knew it was coming too. I was like, all right, what's the fake out gonna be? Like, is there like a cat out here or something?
No, it's just Rod.
It's just Rod. And he scared me.
Rod's my favorite. I like Rod.
I like Rod too, actually.
But you know, Tina just needs to feel safe, and what better to feel safe than to have a strange man grab you by the head and drag you to a bedroom to have sex?
Yeah,
because that's what Rod does.
And my note here, so they obviously they don't show that happening. They show us our other two characters, Nancy and Johnny Depp, as they have to hear the two of them having sex upstairs. My note here is, wow, I think these actors are both virgins. Like,
because
they're just like yelling.
They're making the sounds that people who like what people who haven't had sex think people sound like when they have sex.
Oh, like just like
Rod.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly
Tina.
No, exactly like that.
But while Johnny Depp's listening, he just kind of murmurs, "Morality sucks." It's like, okay, dude.
Horny jail.
He needs to go to horny jail. Like, there needs to be like a horny Johnny Depp counter throughout the entire movie.
Yes, I should have kept track.
There's at least 5, probably more.
Yeah, he needed to go to horny jail.
But everyone just decides, time to go bed.
Yeah,
we're getting sleepy. And probably get the most iconic sequence of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You have basically kind of 2 nightmares happening at once. Because Tina starts having her nightmare. But before I talk about that, I have to talk about the probably one of the most famous shots of this movie, and that is the rubber wall that Freddy starts pushing his head and claw and hand out of.
Yeah,
it is so like cool.
It looks so cool.
You have the cross on the wall above him. It's just like nightmare fuel.
Yeah,
and I'm trying not to talk about the remake too much, but they just replace it with a shitty Freddy CGI coming out of the wall, and it makes me so mad when I think about it because it ruins such a perfect moment.
It is. I think like there's something about practical effects. Like I said it a lot of times when we were like I said it while we were watching the movie a couple times. The effects here are so good, even though you can tell exactly how they did them.
Exactly.
It just like I loved them because I knew how they did it.
Because you can appreciate the ingenuity a lot more than with VFX. Because hey, if you're a VFX artist, you probably can appreciate VFX more. But me, who has no idea how VFX works and how to do it, I can't really even comprehend the work. But But when, I see a ingenious solution to how to make an effect happen using just real objects and real sets, that's always impressive to me.
Well, yeah, and like I feel like it's so easy to be like, "Oh, that VFX is wrong. It just isn't. I don't like it, and it's wrong." Whereas
because you can tell it's not there.
You can tell it's not there, and that's the problem. Like here, at least it's there.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
they tried. They tried really hard.
No, all the VFX not VFX.
The effect, just like
all of the practical effects in this movie are amazing. Like
They're
they're all
so
so cool.
They're so cool. I
And-
have like 5 notes of, oh my god, the effects in this movie are so cool.
That's honestly what I feel like this franchise is known for, is their practical effects being awesome.
They're so cool.
Because that's just kind of a theme that continues throughout. Because, like, yeah, I'm sure later on there's probably some green screen sequences, but almost all of the dream sequences are practical,
Which is so cool.
like built sets, like, and that's awesome.
Yeah, but so after we get a little bit of Nancy's nightmare, we go into Tina, who has pebbles being thrown at her window. And
How romantic!
Oh yeah. Oh, Freddie, you're such a romantic.
I kind of wish there was a parody of this movie where she looks out the window and Freddy's just out there with the boombox.
That would be perfect.
I'm a genius.
Is that not in a scary movie?
It's not.
That would be great. Like a scary. Oh, all right, guys,
Get on it.
Somebody do this.
If we're still making scary movie franchise,
We're do a nightmare based one.
yep, you got to go back to the classics. That'll get butts in seats.
That will get butts in seats. I would go watch that. But yeah, so the last pebble that gets thrown at her window literally sticks. It broke the window and just stays there, and it's right where her face would have been. So of course she goes outside to see who's really harshly chucking pebbles at her face. And she hears things, so she goes back to the alley, and that's where we see Freddy with the elongated arms.
Which, well, as a practical effect, it probably is aged the least good. It's still creepy
I
as
have
hell.
a fun fact about this practical effect. So this one specifically is done with 2 guys with fishing poles, and they're holding like the ends of the arms with the fishing poles.
That's
and
amazing.
The puppeteered arms are just connected to him. And so they're literally just like trying their best to make the arms go forward to match like him walking and stuff. But it's kind of cool. I actually really enjoyed the effect. I love it for me. It still really worked for me because I think that's what a person with elongated arms would look like in a nightmare for me.
You know, that's a good way to put it.
He would look like he had puppeteered arms that are connected to fishing poles.
See, I always whenever I see that effect, I always think of his arms are just massive slinkies.
And that's how you would think that would be a nightmare.
You know, now I say it, that's horrifying. So, but we get one of our many iconic, him scraping his finger knives on something metal, and every time that sound played, I just wince because, God, it's unpleasant.
Oh, it's so I can't do nails on a chalkboard. I can't do
even just saying that hurts.
I can't do a lot
nails
of
on
noises
chalkboard.
like
Nails on the chalkboard. Think about it. Continue.
Yeah, basically I was just saying the same thing as you. I can't do that. I can't do that noise.
But we get a pretty the way Freddy runs after her after she finally decides to run away. He looks like a scare actor.
He looks like a scare actor, or like how a Muppet runs.
Yeah.
He runs how a
Muppet show, yeah.
Right, where their hands are just like above their head and going.
But that tells me he's having fun. I think honestly is what's meant to.
Well, and at that point, then I was like, oh yeah, so he's gonna pop out behind a tree sometime soon and start doing stand up.
Well, at one point in the movie, he does pop out from like a bush or something, doesn't he?
Literally in like 5 seconds.
Yeah,
he does
that's right. The visuals in my brain. I was like, that happens at some point. Well, she loses him for like 5 seconds, and he pops out of a bush, and she's like, "Oh wait, I passed over my favorite line." Before his arms go all, just she's all, "Please God," and just this is God.
Oh right, yeah, this is God.
His voice is weird in the first half of the movie because towards the end he sounds like his normal Freddy, which is that
like that deep thing,
in the prime time, bitch. But early on he's very kind of.
Well, that's what I was getting confused towards the end of the movie because I was like, what? How does Freddy sound? Because earlier he just kind of sounded like a guy, and now he doesn't really just sound like a guy, and now I'm confused.
Yeah, that's how he sounds for the rest of the franchise.
Oh, okay.
He has that gruff kind of, it's like a demon voice pretty much.
Yeah, okay. Because
early on, he's like kind of creepy, snivelly, like, this is God, which is very different from later in the movies, I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy. Like,
yeah, it's weird. That's what I didn't. That confused me.
It like kind of reads like Robert Englund, who I can't believe I didn't say his name. Yet. Kind of figure out the character as the shooting process went on. So, like, you see that happen in a couple movies, like when I think of Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise, there's scenes where his voice is quite different from how it is in other scenes, but that's I imagine that movie shot a lot more out of order, because it is weirdly first half, second half of the movie, but yeah. So she runs away from Freddy. She loses him for a second, and then he pops up out of a tree and says, "Watch this," and this is where this movie was a lot harder to make my list of things I wouldn't do on because a lot you're
of
in a dream. Like, what are you gonna do?
You're in a dream, so like yeah, whatever. So this was the first thing I had on my list, which is that I wouldn't just stand there and watch whatever Nightmare Man just told me to watch. I would keep running. I know that wouldn't have any help because obviously it doesn't with Freddy, but I would keep running. I would try to run away from Scary Guy instead of watching him do what he does next, which is just chop off his own fingers to just show us he's got maggots in there.
Wonderful green goop comes out, spurting out of his fingers. But yeah, and that immediately leads to her just getting tackled. But then we get a really cool part where we get our first look at the spinning set. I'm not sure if it's spinning or if it's just inverted. But we go back to the real world, and Freddy is in the sheets, getting freaky in the sheets with Tina, and
he's murdering her ass.
He's murdering her. What?
He's murdering her.
But yeah, he kind of just slashes her open, and
good old slice and dice.
She starts levitating up to the ceiling, basically, like not really levitating so much as like it's hard to describe.
Okay, so first she's levitating. She's doing a whole Reagan type thing. She's scrambling and she's levitating, and then she sort of moves towards the wall and then kind of climbs up into the corner of the wall and then is in the middle of the wall just dead and laying there on the ceiling. Sorry, I meant the ceiling. She climbs up to the corner of the ceiling in the wall and then climbs into the middle of the ceiling.
And a climb isn't even, I don't know if the word, it's more like she's just kind of getting dragged, scooched up, like, and then she falls and she's dead. And, this whole time, because, they were being naughty, the door's locked. So Nancy and Johnny Depp can't get in. And, Rod's a smart guy. Rod knows no one's going to believe what I have just witnessed.
Yeah.
So he just decides my life is over and tries to make a run for it.
Yeah. With no shoes. He does not put his shoes on first.
He does make sure to get his leather jacket and his jeans, though.
Yeah. Well, how are you going to survive out there without your leather jacket and your jeans?
That's true.
You can survive without shoes, but not without your leather jacket.
80-degree California. My mistake. Ohio. But yeah, that's pretty much the first act of the movie, I would say.
Yeah, and so the girl that I was actually really confused a little bit for the first part of the movie because I was like, I don't think that's the girl who's the girl in this movie. I'm pretty sure she had brown hair, not blonde hair. And then my question was answered because she was our false final girl to start out the movie.
Yeah, we've already covered 2 of those. Think of that.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Stay close, stranger. The room awaits you after these messages.
But then we kind of really abruptly move on. Like there is like police, like, and they're like, oh, it was a razor, but we didn't find anything. But like the next morning, I get it was mostly probably shock, but like Nancy's mom's like, "Are you okay?" And she's just like, "I'm okay, Mom." I'm like, "No, you're not."
I felt like no, because I get this when something like insanely bad goes on. All I want to do is just like pretend nothing is happening and just go back to like doing life.
Yeah, because she's going to school, and that's like obviously, wow, you're actually going to school.
Yeah.
But before she leaves, I can't get over this bit. Like she looks at the TV and it's talking about Tina's murder, and it just shows her naked, bloody corpse on the TV.
Yeah, you can't do that.
You can't. I don't think you can do that.
I'm pretty sure you can't do that.
I don't think that would fly. No warning or anything. No, like.
Viewer discretion is advised.
This is disturbing. Man, that had me thinking of Signs. Sorry. You haven't seen Signs.
Nope.
Yet. We will cover. Announcement. Sometime, some month, we are gonna have M. Night Shyamalan month.
Oh. All right.
I think that'll be fun.
That'll be interesting. That'll be a
we
whole
can go
ride
from when he was good
to his
whatever,
inevitable downfall.
and then his return, because he actually did make a good movie after being bad.
No, that's not the one of the. Wait.
The Visit. He made The Visit.
Oh, that's right.
And that was.
But wait, wasn't that before the one about the people on the beach that get old all of a sudden?
I actually like old.
Scandalous. Yeah, so we are going to have to do this because all I've heard is that old is really, really bad.
For me, it was just such an intriguing idea that even though it wasn't the best movie, I still thought the premise was carried it through. I was like,
all right.
Just like people aging on this beach. It's like kind of neat. There's a lot of dark kind of humor in it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting sidetracked.
But anyway, so she heads out the door to school and she notices this like detective guy. Like, he looks like an FBI agent.
I know.
This guy looks like an FBI agent. He's watching her, and as soon as that guy kind of disappears, Rod grabs her from he pops out behind a tree and just grabs her. Like, that doesn't look suspicious, Rod. And is like, you gotta help me, like, blah, 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 blah. And she doesn't seem that interested, but he does describe what happened. He says, I didn't kill her. There was someone else in the room. I couldn't see them, but I could see that they were under the covers with her. And then all of a sudden, here's the thing. He describes all this. He does not describe that she was on the ceiling.
No, you think that'd be important.
You think that'd be an important detail, like, oh, she was on the ceiling.
And
like
he says the knife, the slashes, they just appeared.
Yeah.
And he starts describing that he's been having nightmares with Freddy in them as well.
Yeah.
The weird man with the green and red sweater.
And then the lieutenant shows up, which is Nancy's dad.
And he's played wonderfully by horror legend John Saxon. Had to give him a shout out.
So he goes to arrest him, and she says one of the only lines that I wrote down from this movie, which was, "Daddy, you used me."
It's like that line has so many problems.
There's so much wrong with that line.
Like, obviously in context, yes, he did, but don't write that on paper for someone to say.
But yeah, so then she goes to school. She's still just acting like there are so many abnormal things happening to her right now, and she's just like, it's a normal day. I'm going to school. It's gonna be fine. I'm gonna sleep in study hall. It's gonna be great.
Which is a great decision.
Yeah. So no, that's not in study hall that she falls.
She does
asleep.
not fall asleep in study hall.
She is actually in English class.
Oh wait, before we get there, by the way, there is a moment. This is one of those funny dubbing moments where he's getting arrested, and I forget exactly what he says, but he's like, "Yeah, all right, I'm cool," but his mouth does not move at all.
Oh yeah.
I had to bring that up.
Yeah.
Like, just look it up if you have the time. If it's even a select scene that's on any YouTube
or
video.
wherever you watched this movie before you listen to this podcast.
Yes, because you should watch the movie before you listen to the podcast.
Because this is not how you get to find out about this movie, okay? I did the wrong thing and I watched the kill counts. You don't get to do that. So if you haven't watched this movie, go watch it right now and then come right back.
Because stealing an ethos here, listening to Room 237 is not a substitute for watching the film. We recommend you watch the film before you listen.
Yeah, because
but you don't have to.
And
Please listen.
And I'm saying please watch the movie because there is nothing to substitute for the experience of watching this movie.
No. Or any movie for that matter.
Or any movie, but I think
good or bad.
I think specifically with this one, like there's just no good substitute. There's no way that you can describe what's happening in audio, or if you even watch clips of it. It's just not the same experience.
No, it's a journey. It's a fun journey. It's the definition of a fun 80s romp.
Oh yeah.
And speaking of 80s, before we get back to Heather sleeping in class, the score in this movie is so good.
Oh yeah, it's so 80s.
It's so 80s, but it's also so Halloween. Uh-huh. Not like Halloween the movie, which I'm sure was an inspiration for the score in some regard. But when I think of like Halloween music, like it's the Halloween theme, and this is right behind it.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't have recognized the score by itself before the movie, but I definitely have heard this all around during Halloween.
Like I said, we live in Ohio. I go to Cedar Point a lot, and during their haunt event, like I just have memories as a kid hearing that score, like just playing in the midways. Like it is capital I, maybe even a double I, iconic.
Yeah. But so she's in English class, and James actually pointed out the English teacher is what's her name? Elise from Insidious.
Yes, I feel like I'm remembering her name right. But it's Lynn Shay.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, she does play Elise Rayner in the Insidious franchise.
Yeah,
and she is wonderful in that franchise and in her small role in this movie as a teacher.
She is wonderful, actually.
She looks like such a nice... She's definitely an English teacher, which is the class that she's at. Like, she looks like an English teacher and sounds like one.
Well, like, so I feel like... I think part of why I trust her is not even just her, it's her actions here, where she obviously saw Nancy falling asleep. But she was like, this person just witnessed murder. They get to sleep through my class. That's okay.
She did not know this was probably this is not a good thing to let happen.
Oh yeah.
But also neither did Nancy. She didn't really know the extent of what falling asleep means yet.
Yes. So she falls asleep in class and starts this like nightmare sequence.
And it's so good.
It is very good.
It's probably the best one in the movie, in my opinion.
It's so good. So it starts, she hears Tina calling for her. Oh my gosh. And props to her for having such a good, creepy, like
stare and voice.
Nancy.
But she just kind of turns to her right, and you just get this no jump scare sound effect, no nothing, just a close up of Tina covered in blood in the body bag.
Yeah.
And
and at this point, so she fell asleep when one kid was going up to the front to read Shakespeare, and the thing that really got me in this scene that gave me that creep factor was this kid that was just reading Shakespeare normally, like a kid does when he goes up in front of the class.
Wherefore art thou?
Starts reading it like this and having this creepy tone. And the change is very subtle and it's just so good. I really loved it. Like, I don't know why, but this really hit
No, it's so
different.
good.
So she sees Nancy. Suddenly Nancy is being dragged down the hallway.
Tina.
Oh, sorry. She
You're
sees
good.
Tina.
I had to set the record just so
Names
no
are
one's lost.
hard, okay?
I know.
Names are hard. So Tina.
I'm bad at memorizing characters' names in movies, weirdly enough, like mainly side characters.
Mhm.
So this has been a tough exercise doing this show.
So Tina gets dragged down the hallway. And Nancy gets up out of her seat and goes and follows the blood, like, what's the right word? Trail. Follows the blood trail, which was my second thing on my list, actually, was run after a blood trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can make the argument if these are dreams, sometimes dreams are kind of on rails, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like maybe that's part of it.
Well, for me, like, I would realize it was a nightmare, and I feel like for me there would be a moment of wake up, wake up, wake up, and I feel like that was what I feel like adding something where she tries to wake herself up there would have added a different tone.
Yeah.
But she just follows it. She just starts going down the hallway, following the blood trail, and she runs into a hall monitor wearing a very familiar sweater.
It's much cleaner.
It is a lot cleaner. It's a little less holy.
A little less holy, a little less disgusting.
Yes.
Where is your hall pass?
Where's your hall pass?
What does Nancy say as a reply? Screw your hall pass. Something like that.
Yeah, something like screw your hall pass, and just like keeps going after the blood trail.
No running in the hallway.
Yeah, and so she turns around, and the hall pass lady, which already when she ran into her had a random nosebleed for no reason. Now it's just like, oh, I know what's happening. She's just got blood like coming from almost every orifice. And she has the
finger knives glove. And she's just no running in the hallway. And you'd think, hey, something's up here. You should probably try and wake yourself up. But this goes to my argument of the dreams are at least somewhat on rails.
Mm-hmm.
She then just follows the blood trail into this boiler room that's not supposed to be there.
Yes.
And then we get another Fredward moment. I love how in a lot of these dreams, Freddy doesn't pop out. He just kind of appears at the end of a hallway.
I actually really like it because he does. And in this one specifically, I think. So she thinks what she's doing is following Nancy, right?
Yeah.
So she kind of hears something. She sees a little bit of a shadow, and she goes, Nancy, and then we fully see the silhouette. Oh God,
Yeah,
Tina!
It's okay.
I keep doing this.
They're both of the two most generic 80s woman names that exist. So Nancy and Tina. We're just missing a Heather, but we have a Heather, and that's because that's the actress's name.
Tina. So she thinks she's following Tina. She says Tina, and we finally see the full silhouette, like a shadow of Freddy, and then he just comes around the corner.
He just like casually walks out like
yeah, really. And of course he starts scraping metal on metal and
it hurts my ears,
hurting me so much.
But he just backs her into a corner, and he says another zany one-liner, "Come to Freddy." Like it's so weird how his voice changes. I don't get over it. And then we get our first hint of the rules. She burns her arm on the boiler pipes and wakes up and is screaming bloody murder because that was horrifying.
Which the teacher acts genuinely freaked out about, which I applaud. Like,
she's just a nice lady.
She is, and she immediately is like, Are you okay? Like, I forget what she said, but it was so comforting to me.
Yeah. So it just felt like everyone's best and most favorite nice lady teacher that they had wrapped into one person.
Yeah, like
she's only in this one scene. That's how much she gripped both of us.
Yes. Like she says, she gets her to calm down at least a little bit, and she's like, we'll get, you're gonna go, let's get you home. And she's like, I gotta go home, whatever. Nancy is freaking out still, and she's like, you can sit back down and we'll call the office, we'll get you home. And Nancy goes, I'm gonna walk home. I promise I'm gonna walk home. I promise I'm gonna go home. And she just very quickly leaves out the door, and the English teacher goes, but you'll need a hall pass.
What if she runs into hall pass lady again?
Which was good. I liked that.
But yeah, like this movie does kind of rapid fire the iconic scenes, honestly, like in the first half of this movie, because it kind of pretty much immediately leads into Nancy in the tub.
Yes.
And this is when her refusal to go to sleep is starting to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, throughout the entire movie, I'm not going to talk about it every time, her mom basically is just like, you need to get to sleep. You need to go to sleep. You need to get some sleep. Like,
she does. There should be
we'd be here for 2 hours if we made sure to make a point of every time mom told her, you need to go to sleep. And that was a whole scene, because there's a couple just like 5-minute scenes of her mom begging her to go to sleep.
Yeah.
But, the first one is don't fall asleep in the bathtub. So her first scene is her telling her not to fall asleep.
Yeah.
How about that?
That's crazy.
But guess what? She falls asleep in the bathtub. Well, almost falls asleep in the bathtub. And we get the iconic shot of Freddy's glove just coming out in quite an interesting spot in the bathtub to grab her. But I guess somehow Mom's voice scared him away, because she wakes up and he just kind of goes, and he just brings his hand back down.
Yep. But immediately after, Mom is like, hey, just make sure you don't fall asleep in the bathtub. I've got some warm milk for you.
Warm milk.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. Nancy falls asleep.
She
in the
falls
bathtub.
asleep. And gets dragged underwater.
Yeah.
Into an impossibly deep water tube puddle thing.
Yeah.
And I just wrote in my notes, number one fear. Someone, like, not just drowning, but someone having a hold of my leg, like, and keeping me from, like, not drowning.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying idea.
Yeah.
You could tell they just kind of sat down and were like, what's some terrifying nightmares you guys have had? And then we'll turn them into sequences.
It's great. It makes it feel so real. But she, struggles and starts screaming. And it wakes her. That wakes herself up, basically. And her mom, kind of starts screaming at the bathroom door because it's locked. And Nancy gets out of the bathroom, kind of just puts on her towel and robe, and is like, "No, I'm fine, Mom. I'm fine." And her mom just goes, "Okay, well, so you know how many people are killed that way?" And I was like, I turned and looked at James and I said, I don't know how many people scream when they drown in the bathtub.
I don't think many.
I think that's the point, that when you fall asleep and you drown in the bathtub, is that there's not a lot of noise that happens there.
Yeah, you just kind of probably slip into the water and drown.
Yeah. I have fallen asleep in the bathtub.
I do wonder what the science of that is, because I feel like the second water enters my lungs, that's going to wake me up.
I think what it is that doesn't really happen to anybody but children.
Yeah.
And it's more of like a human fear more than a thing that happens.
Yeah, that makes sense. But while we were talking about dreams that maybe inspired this, I did want to talk about the quote unquote true story this is based on. I don't know if you knew this. This is somewhat based on a true story. So I guess I'll count this as a James fun fact.
Ooh.
But this film was inspired by a bunch of newspaper articles in the LA Times in the 70s. They were among refugees fleeing to the United States. What?
I did know about this.
Oh, okay.
Know about this.
I was like, what?
Him saying refugees, I was like, oh, right.
They were fleeing war in Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, and they were all reporting severe, disturbing nightmares, and they started like refusing to sleep, and a few of them ended up dying in their sleep.
Yeah, they what they figured out with that was that they were so used to being a community, and when they all escaped to the US, they all ended up in different places. And because they thought a demon was haunting them in their sleep and they didn't have a shaman or some like religious leader to help get rid of said demon, a lot of them just continuously just had stress building and building and building, and it did lead to a lot of them going into cardiac arrest in their sleep. So that is what happened there.
So sleep well tonight. Don't have too many nightmares in a row, or that might be you. You probably also have to have a very strong belief in that these are real, but still.
But yeah, you know.
1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Yeah. So she goes to her room, and I actually noticed this. It pans above her bed, and I feel like this is one of those things that kind of lends into, is the whole thing a nightmare? Because the picture she has above her bed is of herself in the bathtub. It's like a painting of her in the bathtub.
I didn't notice that.
I did. That's it. I was looking for like clues of things that might lead to the whole thing really being a nightmare instead of like just the bits and pieces, like just the nightmare sequences, and that was one of the things that I was like, maybe it's all a nightmare.
And I feel like you could argue that is the possible original intention of the movie.
Mm-hmm. We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get there. But yeah, so Glenn.
She gets Johnny Depp to come over.
Yes. Well, she doesn't do anything. Johnny Depp is just outside her window.
Yeah, that's true.
He scares her. She goes to look out her window, and he's like, hi.
I'm here. It's funny because they do have an outside shot, and you just see him standing there.
You just see him crouching in front of it.
I didn't notice him until like the last 3 seconds of the shot.
Oh.
And I was like, there's a person there. And I was like, but if Nancy didn't want to sound crazy, this next bit didn't help her. But she's like, I need to go find somebody, and I need you to watch me to make sure I don't have any nightmares.
And this was another we need like a bell or something for Johnny Depp needing to go to horny jail.
Yes, because he's like, we're turning the lights off.
And she goes, it's not what you're thinking.
Like, dude, Johnny Depp, you need to go to horny jail. I know you almost probably went in real life, but...
Oh, my goodness.
But, you know how that went, so whatever.
Anyway, so
tangent over.
So she goes to sleep, and it starts a new nightmare sequence. She walks out the door, and I really liked the bit where she calls out to Glenn to see if he's still like next to her, checking on her, and he just pops out behind a tree. He's like,
yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
Which begs so many logic questions. Do you think that means in her sleep she goes, Glenn, are you still there?
Yeah.
And he just responded,
Yeah.
And he
'Cause
just kind of pops up like that,
Well,
like, yeah, I'm
'cause-
still here.
Because I think there's an insinuation here that she's kind of got she's kind of got like these aren't like normal nightmares. They're like a weird
Blending of realities.
yeah, and my I'm sorry, medical. I don't know the medical term for this, but there's like people who there are like types of dreams where you can have where you just completely interact with real life but you are asleep. And I've had dreams where I definitely have heard the interactions of real life. I think I have had dreams too, like right on the edge of REM, and my mom's come to wake me up, and I'm like, no, I'm more 5 more minutes, and in my dream, I'm hearing her go, Ashton, it's time to wake up, and I'm like doing something weird in the dream. I'm like, no, 5 more minutes, and I said that in real life. So that stuff like that does happen when people dream.
I mean, I actually have a similar story, but on the opposite end of sleep.
Mm.
I'm not really opposite because it is when I was supposed to wake up, I guess. But I remember having this dream where, like, I was back in elementary school on the playground, and it was like a perfect dream.
Mhm.
You know, when you're like, I was probably a teenager at the time, you know, dreaming of being back in elementary school is like awesome.
Yeah.
And I just remember like it starts like pouring rain, and I remember we're all running back to the building, and then one kid just goes, "Watch out! There's lightning! There's gonna be thunder! It's coming!" And then there's boom! I woke up to real thunder.
Oh, that's freaky.
Yeah, right at that moment. It was. I still don't understand how that happens.
Dreams are freaky, man. Dreams are freaky.
Like it's probably just pure coincidence.
Yeah.
Right? Like, right? I hope so. I think so. Maybe.
Maybe, or your brain, it might have already thundered once.
And I heard it late.
Your brain like processed it and then knew thunder was coming soon, so it was yelling at you that thunder was going to come soon, and that's why a kid said that, and then you woke up to the thunderstorm.
Dreams are crazy. Like
dreams
that.
are weird.
This is fun because it's an excuse to talk about how weird dreams are.
Yeah.
Which back to the dream at hand. Basically she's gonna go try and visit Rod in the dream world. But honestly, it's a trap.
Yeah.
Because she gets there and Fredward kind of just comes through the bars of the cell, and he's just like, hello, like just waves at her. But then he just vanishes. And I think he pops out of a bush here too.
Oh, he might.
He does.
I think he does, yeah.
Because then he pops out of a bush a little bit later.
Yeah.
And basically just chases her home. And Glenn, you suck at your job. You had one job.
Oh, and while he's chasing her home, she throws down this trash can. He clearly has space to keep running on the other side of the trash can, but it just frazzles him and he has to go pick up the trash can. And my note here is like, I like how throwing something works like in a video game. So like
you've blocked the path of the threat.
Yeah, so like exactly like when you're playing I forgot the name
Dead
of the
by
game.
Daylight?
Yeah, thank you. I'm the one who plays it, and I keep forgetting the name. So like when you're playing Dead by Daylight and you
I
push
don't
something
like the
over.
hooks and the generators mechanics. I can't get into it.
Oh, well, that sucks.
Sorry.
Anyway, so yeah, that I was just like, oh, life is like a video game.
Yeah, he sucks at his job. Really
Yeah.
sucks.
So yes, but so she's yelling for Glenn. He's asleep. And I guess she must not be yelling for Glenn in real life anymore. I think what happened is she was at the edge of REM sleep, so she still interacted because like both our instances we're about to wake up.
Yeah.
So we're coming out of REM sleep, so we're interacting again with real life. She was going into REM sleep, so she was still kind of hearing and interacting with real life, and then she fell into REM sleep. So now when she's yelling for Glenn, he's asleep and he can't hear her because she's not yelling anymore. And she runs into the house, and I loved this effect. I loved this effect in the house where she goes to run up the stairs and they just are like goo.
They're just gooey stairs. And
I
her
was like,
feet are falling through them.
This is a dream. This is real dream world stuff.
Like this
that
is something
happens.
that happens in nightmares. Like,
I was like, this is great.
But of all things, the alarm clock comes in clutch.
Stay close, stranger. The room awaits you after these messages.
Yes.
That's what wakes her up in
That's
the
what
end.
wakes her up. And she wakes up and immediately starts yelling at Glenn.
He's like, what?
She's like, you had one job. And my note here is me when someone does, like, if I fall asleep and I was just arguing with you in a dream, I will wake up and I will be angry at you. That's what that related to me, or related.
I feel like everyone kind of goes through that though, where
Yeah.
like if you dream and like someone you care about is doing something stupid or wrong or like out of character, you wake up like angry, disgusted, or scared of said person.
It's the classic, you cheated on me in my dream.
How could you do this to
How
me?
could you do that to me?
Apologize.
Oh. But so immediately she's like, we gotta get to the jail because Freddy's going for Rod. So they go, she demands to see Rod, and the guy's like, oh, it's supposed to be, I took the night shift so I could get a little peace and quiet. I'm like, dude, this girl is freaking out. At least try a little bit.
Which eventually her dad just kind of appears and does the job for her. But Rod's having his nightmare. The sheet's alive and wraps around his neck and hangs him from his cell window. So it makes it look like he just kills himself to anyone who would be looking on.
What's weird to me is that no one's suspicious that she knew it was going to happen.
That I didn't think of it. I didn't think of it that way.
No one's like, she came in here panicked and was worried something was going to happen to him, and then we got down there and he was dead. Also, they just check his pulse and don't try to resuscitate him.
Nancy, we think you killed himself.
Well, like, you know, no one questions her on if he said he was going to kill himself or something. I know in real police world they would have definitely questioned her.
Yeah, but you can argue it happened between scenes if you want.
That's true, but they don't try to resuscitate him. That bothered me too. Like,
I think well, because you see
her dad.
Yeah, her dad feel his neck. My guess is it was just completely broken.
Oh, I thought he was. That was definitely a pulse check.
No, it looked like he kind of grabbed it.
No, he went like this. I did the two finger thing like they do with pulse checks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I miss saw. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Miss saw?
I think so. But yeah, like, and it just annoyed me because they could have brought him back to life. He just suffocated. Like,
it's a movie. Come on.
It's just annoying. But anyway, we could argue that, you know, it wouldn't have mattered anyway because it was just a nightmare. But
but we get to his funeral, and I just have in all caps here, this is not Ohio, because this is where you see the most obnoxious amount of palm trees everywhere.
Okay, but the note I have here is, where's Tina's funeral?
That's a good point. Where was Tina's funeral? Why did she get one?
The person they accused of murdering her gets a funeral before she does. And
since it's
immediate.
a murder, don't they have to do a bit more extensive like autopsy work?
Yeah, but they also have to do pretty extensive autopsy work on someone who killed themselves in a jail.
Moving on.
And it's like immediate.
Justice for Tina. Why didn't she get her funeral?
And the funeral's like immediate because when they go, we get to the next scene and she's going to a hospital and they're like,
Yeah,
oh,
'cause she basically starts talking what sounds like nonsense to her mom. 'Cause she's like, I know who did this, Fred Krueger, and that's like,
but yeah, so they take her to a hospital, and in that scene they mention that it's only been 2 days that she hasn't been sleeping. So
gee, only 2?
So what I'm saying is, literally the funeral happened the morning after.
What's the big deal?
They put together a funeral like in less than 24 hours for a guy who killed himself in jail.
I think that's just urgency. He was a killer after all. They wanted to get it over with.
All right. But yeah, no, that the big takeaway, his funeral scene.
And you don't know Rod's life. He might have been a funeral prepper. He might have had his gravesite already figured out and everything.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Because most people of the Danny Duco.
I thought you just said Zany Duco.
The Danny Zuko group.
Remind me not to use red pen ever again.
Oh no.
Sorry, brief tangent about the lighting. Anytime I try and look at my book directly, the ink disappears.
So, but yeah, and it doesn't look like Ohio in this scene.
Not at all.
But she does go to her dad and say, I know who did it. It was Fred Krueger.
And this is big news.
Big news.
Because now she has to go do a sleep study.
Yes. And this scene bothered me starting off
and
immediately.
Now, opinions and critiques of Ashton's neurologist father. Go ahead.
Okay, I didn't get a lot from him. I think he's still working, so he didn't really text me back about a lot. But so it's obviously a sleep study that she's doing. They put the electrodes on her head, whatever. And they sit down, and the doctor starts going on this tangent about how we really know nothing about dreams. And I will cover it. Next episode, I will tell you exactly what my dad says about that, because I don't think that's true. I think even in the 80s we knew a little bit more about dreams. That it was like this big elusive thing that this doctor says in this movie. He makes it seem like we don't even know at what stage of sleep they're happening, except then he's like, oh, she's entering REM, she might dream now. I don't like it. It bothers me. I know too much about sleep studies for that to happen. But throughout the sleep study, he's like, oh, she can't be having a nightmare because she's only at a 0.3 or something. And so
it's like, what the fuck does that mean?
So I consulted the expert, the neurologist who does sleep studies like daily. And he was like, yeah, we can't tell what type of dream someone's having in a sleep study. We can tell if they're in REM sleep.
But we do not know the content.
We do not know the content of the dreams. You cannot tell if someone is having a nightmare based on a sleep study. Do better.
Oh. But it goes about how you expect. She wakes up in a panic. But this time's a little different. She got a nasty little cut on her arm, and she has Fredward's hat.
She has his hat.
She just had, and this is very important because it shows not only what happens in the dream world happens for real, but whatever you take out of the dream world comes with you.
Yes. So, yeah. So if you grab something and you wake up, you will have that thing in your hand still. It is a really confusing scene, though, I have to say, because, like, the hat just kind of appeared there at all. Like, she said she grabbed it from him, which would have meant it had to be in her hand, but it wasn't in her hand.
Her hand was under the blanket.
No, both of her hands were pushing back the doctors with the syringe of stuff to put her to sleep.
She could have grabbed it, and then when she's flipping out, could have just...
Yeah. Anyway, it was a confusing scene for me. I was like, whoa, there's a lot going on here. Oh, a hat!
There is a lot. That's the thing. This is an exposition-heavy sequence.
Yes.
Because it sets up the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Which we're pretty much creeping into right now. we're back to the status quo, and that's Nancy's mom telling her to go to bed, and Nancy's kind of faking it this time because wait, I skipped something. More exposition. Nancy's mom is ominously at the end of this hallway in the house.
Oh my God, yes.
And she's like, one, they installed bars on all the windows, which is like not a great thing to do for your what you think is mentally unstable daughter. That probably makes her feel a little bit like a freak. If you're gonna put bars on all the windows. But she says, what does she say, Ashton?
She says, like, follow me to the cellar. Really ominously.
Really creepy and ominously.
And it made my list, actually, because I was like, I would never follow my mom into a cellar if she said that like that. Like, no way. She's going to kill me down there
I'll
or
show
something.
you the truth. Follow me to the cellar. Like,
and I'd be like, no, I'm going to go to bed.
But this is where we get the revelation of Freddy's backstory. So Freddy, or Fredward Krueger, was a child murderer on Elm Street.
Yes.
And he killed 20 children, but he got off simply because they didn't search the right place.
No,
right?
So they said no one signed the warrant. So they actually searched somewhere and found evidence, probably whatever evidence that put him in jail, and they didn't get a warrant.
So
that's
all
what she's
the evidence
saying there.
that they had found and collected was therefore useless.
Yeah, it was useless.
So they had nothing, even though they had everything.
They couldn't use it in court.
So he walked, and the parents of the children and the other children that were still alive took justice into their own hands, found where he was, and burned the building to the ground.
They lit him on fire. That's what they did.
Yes. They you can tell she tries to cherry coat it, but they killed him.
Yeah.
In a very brutal fashion. Fair enough. Piece of shit.
And
deserved to die.
This is another fun fact from Ashton that leads me into another one. Initially, Freddy was going to be a child molester, but there were like a string of molestations in California at the time. And surprisingly, Wes Craven didn't want to be accused of exploiting that, so he changed the script. And that's why when we get to the remake, he is a child molester in the remakes.
And I'd say the remake proves that it was a good idea to change it because Freddy is a deplorable human being, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But he's funny. It's not fun to laugh at things. See, it's like, yeah, child killer, not great either, but it's more like out of your like realm of possibility in your brain of like, I don't know how to describe it. It just somehow feels ickier.
Yeah.
It just does. Because obviously both are not a good thing to do, but
one of them your priest might have done, and another one the person you know who might have done it is in jail. So
yeah. So it's time to move on. But after all this exposition, we go back to the status quo, and that's Nancy's mom telling her, make sure you get some sleep in a 5-minute scene. But it does lead to my favorite comedic bit of the movie of Nancy's mom taking all these coffee mugs and coffee pots out of her room as she's pretending to fake fall asleep. Then Nancy just immediately gets up and just has another coffee maker hidden under her mattress.
Plugged in and
ready to go. It had a pot already.
It had a pot ready already. So she was prepared for this. And with her coffee, she does take some like pills to help her stay up that she had found in the bathroom earlier, but I forgot to mention this. Then which adds to my list. Take something called stay awake fast acting,
which sounds like made up gas station like pills. You know when you go to the gas station, they have those like suspect as hell like pills just like up by the counter. That sounds like one of them.
Yeah. And that's all it says on it. I would never take something that just says that.
Stay
on
awake, fast acting.
Like, no, thank you.
That sounds like a one-way trip to a heart attack, probably.
Yeah.
But you know, she calls up Johnny Depp, and she's like, "You're gonna come over at midnight. I'm gonna pull him out, and you're gonna beat him with a bat.
Yeah.
It's good." And she's like, "Better be over here. Don't fall asleep."
She says that's like her most important part of the
Yes.
phone call is don't fall asleep. She says it's so creepy.
Yeah.
She's starting to look really creepy.
Well, because
at this
she's
point.
definitely unhinged. She hasn't slept in what she said 7 days.
Yeah. She's starting to look unwell.
So if she wasn't crazy before, she's at least a little crazy now.
And her hair is kind of everywhere.
She got the white streak randomly during the sleep study.
Oh,
we didn't
yeah.
talk about that. I don't think they explained how that happens
Yeah,
or works.
We really don't get anything about that.
I think we might in a sequel, but I might be wrong.
So yeah. But Glenn is
He falls.
Glenn.
He's like, "Oh, okay." And then we get kind of a little bit of weird exposition of the parents, like not, Glenn's parents, just like, we need to get her to stay away from our boy, which I guess is the explanation for why they basically unplug the phone,
Yeah.
or they leave the phone off the hook so Nancy can't call.
Which for you youngins, it just was what you would do so no one could call you because the line would be busy.
Yes, it would be registering as someo's on the phone, so you
Yes.
couldn't. Basically, that's how you muted a landline back in the day.
Yep.
But Glenn has proven time and time again to be a bad listener. And he falls asleep.
And he tells his mother in this scene that because she comes in and he's listening to the radio as well as watching his TV. And she's like, "How can you listen to your records and listen to the TV at the same time?" And he's like, "I'm not listening to the TV. I'm watching the TV and I'm listening to my records." And he says like
Miss Nude USA is gonna be on.
And then I was like, horny jail.
And then like his mom goes, "Well, with those headphones, how are you gonna hear what she's gonna say?" And he's just like, "Doesn't matter what she says." Like, there's 2 horny jail strikes in one scene.
But yeah, I think he falls asleep before he even gets to see Miss Nude USA.
I know, what a dude did not believe in himself.
No, I guess not.
But then we get another use of the upside down / rotating set.
Oh, this is so cool.
And that is, I just call it the blood fountain.
Yeah.
Because Johnny Depp, Freddy's arms just come up around Johnny Depp's hips and drag him down by the stomach into his own bed, and just a giant jet funnel of blood just pools up on the ceiling.
It looks so cool.
It looks amazing, and I love practical effects. Can we please just keep doing them forever?
Because like I could tell it was an inverted set. You can tell.
Yes,
it's
but you can also
set.
tell it's real.
Yes.
That's the most
And that's the
part.
thing is like I feel like in a dream blood would pool on the ceiling the same way it would pool on the floor.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that it was really, really cool.
But the coolest bit to me is when Johnny Depp's mom. Oh wait. Before this happens, by the way, Freddy calls her up and's like, "I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy." Well, I had to bring that up.
Yeah.
But the coolest bit of that whole sequence to me is when Johnny Depp's mom opens the door and she sees the aftermath, and you can still see the blood like dripping up
Yes.
from objects.
Yes.
Like, that is so cool.
It's so cool looking. It is so cool looking.
Like, it looks like in I guess I'm bringing this movie up twice. The blood like flows upward,
Yes.
but in that movie it's all digital. It's practical
it
here.
would be so cool if that was practical.
Exactly.
It would be so cool because that was the movie I was thinking of with this scene. But this scene also made me think of another fun fact I have for this movie, which is that over 500 gallons of fake blood were used in the filming of this movie.
Is that a record?
I don't know.
I
I
think-
just know that I don't think that's a record. I believe I've heard
It
of
reference
worse.
number 3. I'm pretty sure the bathroom stall in chapter 2 is the record.
I think so too.
But we get this just wonderful Home Alone-esque sequence of Nancy setting up a bunch of traps, and like a total maniac, she's just like, Dad, I need you to come over in about 12:30.
Yeah,
So
in
it'd be
20 minutes.
And you're gonna catch him. I know who he is. It's Fred Krueger. And he's like, oh, well, you're gonna get some sleep though, right? Okay, yeah, I'll be right on it.
He does an excellent job of acting like a dad here.
Yeah, he does. Like you can tell he's towing the line between playing into what he thinks are delusions
Mhm.
and also not just yelling at her like
Yeah.
her mom probably would.
Yeah, so he's doing the thing of like, okay, but as long as you get some sleep, I'll be there in 20 minutes. That's what he says. And so she sets all sorts of traps around the house.
We get a sledgehammer tripwire thing going on. She empties out a bunch of shotgun shells and puts them into a light bulb.
Good thing there's shotgun shells around, you know?
I mean, this is America. Like,
I guess this is Ohio.
yeah, there's a lot of homes that just have shotgun shells. And what was the other trap? I'm missing a trap. I swear there was one more. Oh, the filling up she just filled up that glass bottle with gasoline.
Yeah.
And she puts her plan into action and goes to bed. And, we get kind of a fairly standard dream sequence at this point of her just kind of walking through the house, and it's all a little funky.
Yeah. And she's yelling, she's trying to find Freddy.
Yeah, she's trying to
'Cause
find him.
This is like one of the first times he's not like immediately going after her. I feel like he has a clue at what she's trying to do.
He's probably a little thrown off that she's purposefully trying to get to him.
Yeah.
But I guess fun fact, if you have a digital watch with a timer on it, it still works.
It still works
It
in your
still
dream.
works in your dream.
Well, no, I think what we get out here is how the alarm clock works to wake her up, and she can hear the alarm clock. She can hear what the digital watch is doing a countdown, an out loud countdown, and she can hear it.
But she looks at it.
Yeah, but if she can hear what
Yeah.
it's saying, she can register that in her dreams as looking at it.
Might be a little overanalyzing, but that
I'm
makes
just
sense.
saying. I'm a dream genius, guys. You should know this.
She's the dream lady.
I am the dream lady.
My dream lady.
Oh.
That was really corny.
Oh, that's what
You're
you
welcome
get.
or I'm sorry, depending on your opinions of what I just did.
It's for us. It's Valentine's Day tomorrow, so we're in corny moods.
Yeah, so happy Valentine's Day. Belated.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So she's
I lost track of where we were.
So she goes down into her basement in the dream where her mother had actually we skipped over this earlier, but in that conversation about killing Freddy Krueger, her mother pulled out from the furnace his glove. And she goes down to get it. And she sees that it's no longer in there. And she hears something come from behind her, and there's like a closet. So she opens the closet door, and now we're on the stairways to the boiler room again.
Now it's in her house. Isn't that fun?
Yeah. But so she gets down to the boiler room, and she hears Tina calling for her. She hears Rod says something too.
Yeah, it kind of greatest hits
Yeah,
all the other
basically.
dream sequences through here, until Freddy just eventually does pop
Well,
out,
First, she finds that little alcove with a whole bunch of their belongings,
which is cool.
yeah,
It's like a little
so-
trophy room, basically.
Yeah. I feel like it insinuates that Freddy Krueger, the guy, had his own trophy like space
Oh,
down in
definitely.
that boiler room. So she finds the
Because in the
crucifix.
opening credits, you do see, we kind of skipped over this. You do see like Freddy is a human, like getting himself ready.
Yeah. So, she finds Tina's crucifix, Rod's switchblade, and she walks over around the corner, and the last thing she finds is Johnny Depp's headphones covered in blood. And she drops them immediately.
Which is like a little bit taunting, I imagine.
Yes, because I think right after that is when Freddy
Krueger.
Freddy does the thing with metal on metal again.
Down the pipes.
Yes.
Yeah, once again, he does just basically kind of appear. But, he kind of gives chase. They end up outside? Somehow. How did they end up outside?
She falls down, and then it turns into her falling down into the road, falling out of her window.
Yeah, she jumps off of one of the platforms in the boiler room, and then boom, she's just out in the front yard.
Yeah, so then she's yelling for him because her stopwatch is saying she has 10 seconds left before her alarm goes off. So she's yelling for him. She gets him to chase her all the way up to her room so that he like tackles her right when she falls into her bed and right when the alarm goes off.
No, he just tackles her out. She just tackles him
it's outside. No, it is just outside.
Yeah,
You're
and
right.
then she wakes up suddenly, and he's not there at first.
And
she's like, maybe I am crazy.
Yes.
And then he just like pops out.
Yes.
And the Home Alone sequence can begin.
Yep. So she immediately just runs out her door and sets the tripwire for the sledgehammer. And she kind of like taunts him a little bit.
Yeah, and like then we get kind of like a long annoying sequence where she's like breaking open windows and like yelling for the deputies to go get her dad. And
it's
like
so
this
annoying.
The stupidest deputy I've ever seen is like he's literally just sitting there watching like this girl scream bloody murder. He's like, "What? We're busy right now." Like
And this is a deputy that her father said, "Hey, if there's anything fishy going down at that house, you need to let me know immediately."
He's not a very good listener.
No, he's not. This is indicative of a problem we have in the real world where sometimes men just aren't very good listeners.
I'm a good listener.
Yeah.
I think you're doing a sexism. She shrugged.
We've learned that my dad isn't a good listener.
Okay, is he the only man?
You miss stuff sometimes.
Yeah, but I listen.
Austin's not a good listener.
You hear that? He's not here. Okay. Well.
Yeah. So
moving on.
So anyway,
he eventually gets the clue, and he says it in the most hilarious way possible. He just goes, "I should probably go get the lieutenant."
Meanwhile, she's running around the house, basically guiding Freddy through her traps.
He takes a sledgehammer to the gut.
Yes.
Or the balls, depending on how you want to look at it.
It was the gut. It was long enough to be the balls.
Balls.
But then, she leads them into the living room where she set the gunpowder trap. And finally, they end up in the basement. And she throws the glass bottle full of gasoline at him and lights him on fire. And he runs up after her up the stairs, and I forget what happens, but he falls back down. And then
he fell down the stairs after getting hit in the gut.
No, he falls back down the stairs when he's on fire too, because that is another one of my fun facts. That's right. The shot where he runs up the stairs on fire was taken as a one shot. That was a one shot, that whole scene there. Gotcha. And he was only supposed to run up the stairs and be extinguished. He wasn't supposed to fall back down the stairs and then try to run back up them. But the stuntman doing the sequence improvised, falling down the stairs and then running back up them. And it was at that time like the most intricate fire scene ever filmed.
Fire stunts are so cool.
It's
Mad
so
respect
cool.
to every stunt man and stunt woman that's ever
It does look really
that's
cool
ever put
too.
on the suit.
Yeah. So, but he's on fire, and finally her dad breaks back into the house, and because there's smoke pouring out of like many orifices of this house.
Yes.
And so they go downstairs to check on the fire, and she looks down and Freddy's not down there.
Stay close, stranger. The room awaits you after these messages.
She turns around and sees flame footsteps,
Which is such a cool visual.
it looks so cool going up the stairs, and then she looks at her dad and goes, he's going after mom, and runs up the stairs and catches him on top of her mother. And that's what her dad runs in behind her and sees it. And he throws a blanket on top of them, basically so her mother doesn't burn to death.
Whoops.
Yeah. And Freddy disappears, but her mother is a burnt corpse. That happened fast.
That just kind of the bed opens up into this like black and blue nebulous void, and she just falls down into it, and it is the most metal shit in this entire movie.
It was so cool looking. It's just like a burnt, like there's bones, there's skeleton already, and it's like reaching for her and falls down into the bed. And one of the deputies comes up to talk to the lieutenant, and he just closed the door, and he's like, what does he say to her? He goes to say something to her, and she just says,
She says, "You go. Like I have to,
I'll be down in a second."
I'll
She
be down
says,
in a second.
You go, I'll be down in a second. And shuts the door, and she just kind of looks at the bed and then turns around because something we had learned from Johnny Depp earlier in the movie.
I forget the name of the culture that he was referring to.
Yes, but it's a dream like
More dream rules that are
Yes.
set up that basically, I forget the name of the culture you referred to. I should have written it down.
Yeah, me too.
But basically, whenever they have a threat in their dreams, they turn away from it and deny it power, and it will go. It's basically the gist of it.
Yeah, so basically taking back all the power you gave the monster in your dream. So she turns around and she goes, "Freddy, I know you're behind me." And
He comes out of the sheet in the coolest way possible.
Yes.
He just like, his head just stretches up and he rips it and he looks pissed.
oh, it's so cool looking. And so she turns back to him and she says, "I take away all the power I gave you. This is just a dream. You're not real."
Then she turns back around and Freddy's just, "You bitch," basically. Like,
Yes, and it goes to go after her, and he disappears into dream dust.
he turns into a bunch of blue coins is kind of what it looks like.
And she opens the door, and she steps out into the sunlight. And her mother steps out behind her. And fun fact, we're leading into the end of the movie,
Yes.
and there's
There are four.
different filmed endings to this movie.
And we're going to run through all
because
four of them.
there was a difference in opinion between the producer and Wes Craven. So they had to come to a compromise, but they filmed all versions of the end of the movie. So the beginning of the end is always the
Yes.
same. So
Of
she's
course, this is the canon ending we're going to talk about first.
Yes, we're starting with the real ending, which is that she walks out the door, and her mother says, "Did you sleep okay last night? You're looking kind of peckish or peakish or something.
You look peaked.
You look peaked." And she says,
I must have slept really hard.
I must have
guess.
slept really hard, I guess. And
She basically we were convinced we'd remember all the dialogue
we
because we
didn't.
watched all the endings.
Yeah.
And they're all fairly similar.
That part of the scene is always the same.
Yes. But she goes to the car with all of her friends, and it's all a little too happy, you know.
But there's a fog going on, and
Can
Rod
you believe
says,
this fog?
and her mother goes, "I'll believe in anything."
Which, God,
it's
when you watch them all in a row, it's like, can you believe this fog? I'll believe in anything. Ha 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 ha. Laugh track. Like,
yeah, right. And it seems really great. And her mother's just looking at her happily. Oh, when she stepped out of the door, we forgot to mention her mom's an alcoholic.
Yeah, she's like, I don't even want to touch alcohol anymore.
She says, you realize when you wake up and you forget the whole night before that you've hit rock bottom. She says it way too happy.
Yeah, she's like, you hit rock bottom. I don't even want to have another drop. Like,
but they're all in the car. They're all happy, and suddenly the roof of this convertible comes down, and it's got
Freddy's stripes.
Yep. And still, Nancy's just convinced that it's over, I think, or she's trying to convince
they're like
herself because they're
like,
laughing at it.
whoa.
What happened? And suddenly the car just starts freaking out. The windows all roll up.
They all roll up and lock themselves, and the car starts driving off on its own. And Mom's still just smiling, and then Freddy's arm comes out, and a shitty blow-up doll gets sucked into the window. And that's the end of the
and we
movie.
pan to these girls playing jump rope. And I guess we didn't really talk about the rhyme a lot. We should probably
at the begin. It's shown at the beginning of the movie. The 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, grab your crucifix. 7, 8, gotta stay awake. 9, 10, never sleep again.
Yeah. Which actually was made by Heather's boyfriend. He made that rhyme up, and then they used it in the movie.
Which is fun.
Yeah. So then, which one was the next ending, James?
The next ending after the true ending is referred to as the scary ending, and it's
pretty similar.
pretty much the same, except
the car doesn't go crazy.
yes.
So
they just drive off all happy,
and she goes, "Bye, Mom."
yeah, it's really terribly 80 yard. Bye, Mom. Like,
yeah.
and then the blow up doll thing happens, and then you get the singing children.
Yep. Then the next one
is the good ending. Which
this,
I think is the best ending. We both feel this way, I think.
Yes, and it is what Wes Craven initially intended for the movie. So basically the whole scene happens. She walks out into the sunlight. The mom and her have a conversation. She gets in the car and they drive off to school. And we just get a pan to these little girls playing jump rope, singing the Freddy rhyme.
And it's just enough to bait a sequel.
Yeah,
that's all you really needed.
It's just enough to bait that there's still something off, because I feel like the dialogue in the end of the movie and the fog, the weird comments the mom makes about alcoholism and
everything's too perfect.
Everything's too perfect leaves this feeling that you're like, this still isn't real life. Something's wrong.
Yes,
here.
and that's all that they should have done. Wes was right.
What we said it here, folks. Wes was right.
Rest in peace, Wes.
Wes was right. I hope you hear this.
Because biggest bonus, we don't get the goofy looking blow up doll getting sucked through the window.
Which I think the reason that happened is because they were initially just going by the script, and then
it's tacked on. No, that part it's famously tacked on at the end of the shoot. It might have even been a reshoot.
Yeah, because the person who wanted that was not Wes Craven. It was the producer. And they argued about the ending really hard.
Yeah.
So.
And then this one's probably the weirdest. It's the Freddy end.
Which is the one that the producer wanted. This is the producer's fully shot version of the ending he wanted.
It's pretty much the true ending, except there's just a shot of Freddy driving what you assume is the car
Yeah.
But at the same time, it looks completely different on the inside, and none of the kids are in it anymore.
Yeah, I think really what's going on there is like, it's just that they kind of put together a rough draft of what that ending would have
looked all
like.
rough, like that terribly 80-yard. Bye, mom. Like it's clearly
so
not blended in perfectly.
Right, like Wes was basically, I feel like, trying to get all those filmed so he could really show the producer how stupid his idea was.
So that is the ending or endings of the movie.
That was Nightmare on Elm Street, folks.
Yet again, I love this movie. We've not had a movie I haven't said that yet for.
I really love this movie. I think for me the real draw in to this movie is I think this is the first one where we can theorize, which is why I really am excited about podcasting about this, because we can do the theorizing. And the effects are just so cool. They're just so cool. I can't stop.
Oh no, it's so fun.
I can't stop thinking about the effects.
But obviously this movie is super influential, super important. Unfortunately, I think this franchise is kind of stuck in a state of development hell where it's not really doing anything and there's not really any plan for it at the moment, which you could argue is a good thing.
It's so unfortunate because this movie actually saved New Line Cinema. So New Line Cinema was going into bankruptcy when they produced this movie. And this movie did so well, it brought them out of bankruptcy and gave that company the like kind of nickname the house that Freddy built.
That's fun.
Oh, and I have a response from my local expert. Okay, so I guess dream science has changed a lot from the 80s. It's a lot different even than it was from 2015, he says. So he just says the science has changed a lot. So anything that the doctor says in that sleep study scene, don't really take super seriously or to mean from now. Take it as you're watching the scene from The Exorcist when the medical stuff is going down. It's just basically out of touch science.
Yes. Not as bad as let's spinal tap a child because they're acting up.
Yeah, this scene started and I was like, oh my God, is this going to be scary like it was in The Exorcist? Because that kind of would have gone along with the theme of this movie where it's kind of just nightmare-ish, like medical stuff happening. But no, it was just a sleep study.
Yeah, just a simple little sleep.
It really was. It was just
some
sleep
nodes
study.
on your forehead, you know? Whoa.
We keep doing that this episode.
But any other final thoughts on the film itself?
Yeah, I wanted to get into the theorizing a little bit.
Oh, okay.
You want to get into the theorizing?
Yeah, we can get into theorizing a little bit.
So I don't know if this is a thing or not. It probably is, considering that I thought of this while we were watching. I think the whole thing's a nightmare. The whole thing, the whole movie, front to back, a nightmare. Nothing that's happening in the movie is actually happening.
If I separate from knowledge of the franchise existing, I could say I think that might have been the original intention of the film.
Well, especially with Wes Craven's ending supposed to be being the happy ending, where she just basically says, "I don't believe in you anymore, Freddy," and everything just basically starts over, and she just goes to school.
Yeah.
So like I feel like the whole thing's a nightmare.
But they put that. Still, his original ending, I feel like, can be interpreted as this is a dream as well.
Yeah.
Because it's hazy, foggy, it's really, really bright.
And the intention...
And everyone's acting a bit too happy.
But the intention of that was really so that they could make a sequel if they wanted to. Wes Craven wanted the ending to be rounded out and happy, which is kind of surprising to me because he seems pretty twisted. But but Wes Craven's original intention was for it to be just a rounded out happy ending. Basically, I think basically, so if they didn't get a sequel, they could just be like, yeah, it was a nightmare all along.
Yeah, and I agree. I think if I put myself in universe, basically that would be my conclusion of the movie, but I don't believe that to be the case.
Yeah.
Speaking as from like what the actual canon of the storyline is.
Which is so upsetting because I wish I knew what was going on.
know.
But I feel like in this movie, from the context of this movie, there's a lot of random things that happen that kind of give you the this is just a nightmare kind of vibe. The way the scenes kind of just jump around. And to how some people react, I feel like, to like things happening around them, and how you can't tell when reality is reality and nightmare is nightmare.
Yeah, because you do just kind of fade into it in the movie a lot.
We fade back and forth, and I think that's just indicative of the whole thing is a nightmare from the point of view of just this movie.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of random things like I said. There's that picture above her bed of her in the bathtub. It's not a picture; it's a painting. A painting above the bed of her in the bathtub. Just little things like that.
Yeah.
Like those. That's kind of what gives me the. This is all just a really freaking terrifying nightmare. That goes on forever. I've had nightmares like that. It's kind of weird.
Nightmares that feel like they never end and they kind of like loop.
No, I've had a nightmare where I quite literally did a whole really horrific day at school. And so the first part of the nightmare was a regular nightmare. I have these nightmares a lot where I can't open my eyes and scary things are happening to me, but I can't do anything about them because my eyes won't stay open. It's really weird. It happens to me all the time. So the first part of the nightmare was that, and then I woke up in my nightmare from that nightmare, and then I had a horrific day at school, and like all my friends dropped me, and this was like in middle school, and I remember it very vividly, and like everyone hated me, and I wore like the wrong clothes or something, and I like was having just a terrible day, and I like got home from school, and then some loud noise happened, and I woke up for real, and I was like, whoa, I'm exhausted. Because that was like the dreams had taken so much energy from me. Yeah.
Funny how dreams can just ruin your sleep.
Yeah, no, for real. But yeah, so anyway, that's my theory on just the first movie. That would be the theory I would have had if I watched it in
I think that's a perfectly
1984.
fair like assumption as like someone who's only seen this movie.
Like if it was 1984 and we had just watched this movie, that would be my theory. I know that is different than that because I know the franchise. Specifically, I know that the pulling things out of your dreams thing becomes really important later on. I feel like that's Dream Warriors where that becomes like a big thing or something.
Gotcha.
I don't know what it is. I've never watched the movies. I just watched the kill counts, but I know later on that becomes
I don't
like
want to say anything.
An important mechanic.
I don't know if we'll cover the sequels on here, but we're definitely going to watch them.
Yeah. I just know that the pulling things out of your dreams becomes an important mechanic.
I feel like seeing sequels on this show could happen later in its lifespan, but I think for the most part, I'm going to save that for us to view casually just together and not have to write notes and think about what we're going to say.
Except for paranormal. I want to do a paranormal marathon.
Well, okay, except for paranormal.
Especially because you don't really like paranormal,
Yeah.
so you don't care about not doing the...
Going a little behind the scenes here, I have a suggestion.
Oh.
I think the week leading up, we should just watch the first couple and do it all as one episode. Because I feel like going through the story like we do normally for Paranormal Activity would be excruciatingly boring.
I don't know that that's true.
Like,
Dead Meat did it.
Okay.
And that's why I really want to do it. Because Dead Meat did it and it sounded really freaking interesting. So.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it later. Do you have any other theories?
My other theory is that Glenn's in on it.
That doesn't make
That's
any
it.
sense.
That's it. No, Glenn's in on it because
Just because Johnny
he's-
Depp wasn't a good actor yet.
No, because he's really suspicious. He's really quiet. He kind of does more of watching. He never actually helps when he's supposed to. We don't actually see his dead body,
He definitely died, though.
but we don't know that. That could have just been blood. Freddy probably has access to tons of blood. And he's the one who solidifies the dream rules.
Okay.
He's in on it. Whether
Well,
he's I don't know how he's in on it. I don't know really what his purpose is. But if we're okay, actually. Okay. So, let's take it in my dream theory thing. He's the guy leading the dream. He's the guy leading the dream. He's the one who tells you where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to do.
are you trying to say
sets
he's
the
like
rules.
Virgil in Dante's Inferno or something?
Yes, he is. He's Virgil. Virgil in Dante's Inferno. That's who he is.
Oh, Lord. Well, how many gallons out of 10 of Johnny Depp's blood would you give this movie?
8.5 gallons of blood.
Whose blood?
Johnny Depp's.
Well, we're on the same page. Because I
Alright.
am also at 8.5 gallons of Johnny Depp's blood out of 10.
Alrighty.
Alrighty. Well, that was A Nightmare on Elm Street, but we're not done.
No.
We also have our brief weekly Discord Q&A. Of course, if you would like to submit your own questions to the Q&A, you can join us at discord.gg/Jumperscape.
And it's always popping in there.
It's always
so
popping. We're always having fun.
We do have fun. We have great conversations on there.
So get in here, please.
Yeah.
Our first question of the day comes from Potassium. This is definitely probably more of a question for me than you because you've not seen this movie yet. And I'm not going to answer it. I'm going to answer it vaguely because I don't want to spoil it. How do you feel about the ending of The Mist? There's not an ending, I think, that has destroyed my soul more.
Mm.
Moving on.
That sounds like to me like the ending of La La Land.
I don't know the ending of La La Land. Maybe. I don't know. Probably not.
Basically, it's just depressing.
Okay, well, what happens?
Basically they throw away the whole love story and the two people from the whole movie that you've been rooting for them to be together don't end up together, and they run into each other at a bar and she just leaves. They just leave and they never see each other again. It
Yeah,
makes
the
you
ending to The
cry.
Mist is a lot more devastating. You'll see what I mean whenever we watch that movie.
all right.
Because we'll probably cover it on here.
All right.
What movie scared you the most that you've seen in your life?
Oh, I think that's a pretty easy one. It's what's the name of that series where both the one and the other both got A cinema scores? I just forgot it.
The Conjuring?
Yeah, The Conjuring. The first Conjuring
Okay.
movie. The first Conjuring movie.
Yeah, that's a basic ass answer.
Okay, I did. Do you not remember having to hold me?
I remember.
Jesus.
I remember.
I haven't had a horror movie scare me like that ever.
I always forget how actually effective that movie is. Every time I rewatch it, I'm like, God damn.
It's so effective.
I'm a little
it's so
spooked.
scary.
I know what's happening. For me, I'm deep cutting a little bit. There's a couple movies that come to mind. If I'm
Mhm.
talking about like childhood trauma, like I watched it as a youngin' and scared me. Me and Shane from the library, we're childhood friends. Us and another friend watched Grave Encounters, which is basically kind of a
Mhm.
riff on Ghost Adventures. But that movie scared the hell out of me as a kid. But if we're talking about ones that like physically made me like kind of messed me up for a couple days. One would be the Poughkeepsie Tapes, which is kind of a mockumentary about a serial killer
Mhm.
like in this town, and like basically he keeps sending the media like videotapes and they're disturbingly real feeling. And oh God, it's bad. It's bad. Like that movie that bothered me. Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer bothered me, which is kind of similar in its kind of real, very groundedness.
Mm-hmm.
It's Henry Rooker, so that helped a little bit because it's funny watching Yondu just be like, but he's just a evil son of a bitch in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who he's based off of.
Mm-hmm.
And Martyrs. That's all I'll say.
If we're talking childhood trauma, this is gonna be really, really funny. The movie that scared me the worst as a kid, like I lost sleep, E.T. I'm not kidding. I lost sleep over E.T. I would see his little glowing finger just pop up in windows. And it scared the shit out of me. I was so scared of E.T. We have reconciled, though. E.T. and I are good friends now.
Well, that's nice to hear.
Yeah.
That question was from 3 Dots, by the way. I forgot to say your name. Sorry, buddy. He makes really good art. Potassium has asked another question.
Ooh.
And this is actually a question that we answered last week on the podcast, but I'm gonna answer it again and count it as a question. Will there be horror movie nights in the Discord? Most definitely.
Yes.
Probably wait for the podcast to actually be out before we start planning those.
Yeah. We will.
Give people a chance who discover us on Spotify and join the Discord because of this show, like a chance to get in and enjoy those. But probably have the first one, hopefully, a couple weeks before the a couple weeks after, like in that time frame of the show coming out.
Yeah, so those will be fun. It's like okay, I think you guys will find sometimes watching a movie with me can be annoying because all this talking that I do in front of the microphone, I sometimes do it when I'm watching movies.
Yeah.
I do it a lot when I'm watching movies, actually.
I've gotten used to just voicing when I want to listen to the movie. Because early in our relationship, I would just kind of let her keep talking because I didn't want to be mean.
No, I do it a lot. And actually, taking notes, watching these movies keeps me from doing it quite as much.
But yeah. Shark Guy 171 wants to know what our favorite cryptid is.
Mine's going to be a basic bitch answer.
Tell me.
Mothman.
Yeah, it is a basic answer, but it's not too basic. It could have been more basic, like Bigfoot.
I think Bigfoots are annoying. I think Bigfoots and Yetis are annoying. I like Mothman. He good guy.
I have a couple answers. They're all kind of basic.
Mm-hmm.
I like me, like these aren't my answers. These are kind of just runner-ups. I like my skinwalkers. I like my wendigos. Even though wendigo is more of a, it's not really a cryptid because it's technically a human. Same with skinwalkers. Is that fair?
No, I feel like they're still considered cryptids though.
Okay. Well, yeah, those. But one of my favorites are the Fresno night-crawlers.
Oh,
those little guys that look like pants.
Yeah.
I love those. Weird answer, I know, but that's the truth right there.
That's really fair. That's really fair. Uh-oh.
Tom Cruise asks, how do y'all like the throaty sensation of gurgling refried beans? Just curious.
Well, I don't do that, so I really couldn't tell you.
I don't like refried beans.
I eat refried beans, actually. I like refried beans.
That was a stupid question, Tom. Do better. Once again, if you'd like to add your own questions to the Q&A, go ahead and find us at discord.gg/Jumperscape, and you can join today. Chat with us, ask the questions that you like, and we'll probably answer them on the show. By probably, I mean definitely, because I easily could have skipped over that last question, but I didn't, because I care.
Yeah, and honestly, please do, because every single time I see one, it takes everything in me not to just respond immediately.
Yes. But if you would like to support us, you can head on over to patreon.com/jumperscape. You can find us plenty of tiers to choose from, plenty of fun little benefits you can get. And if you do, you can be a part of what I'm about to do, and that is read off some of our patrons. So, of course, we have Jacob Adium, Potassium, Dark Salad 42, Lactation of Regret, Dick Hammerbush, Mounds of Meath. It's Jesus. It's Default 456, Lactating Gator, Mando, Margarita Ortega, Cool Blaze, Kyle Hooley, Last Dawn Productions, Momag Yallen, Spartan Habuko G156, Addy, Big Feet the Pondered, Connor Clark, Dylan, Garaz Vicarian, Lactating Milk MT, LPU Soldier, Mass the Merc 664, Onyx Diablo X, Perplexed Panic 1, Preacher, The Lactation of Mercy, Vermin, Brennan Pfeiffer, Eliza, JX O'Malley, Keith G077, Oddball Here, OdST, Austin Taylor, Damian Groth, Dragon Eye, Drew Ledbetter, Ginger Boy Head Ass, Hayden Hamilton, It's Default 2.0, Lactating Snake Lactating Snake Nipples. Are you happy?
Amazing.
Mando 2.0, Pity 104, The Goob, Tom Cruise, Austin, Tyler Neal, Wraith, X3tian, and Keegan, of course. So thank you all. Oh, there's another page. Oh my goodness, we have 2 pages. Of course, Warm Applesauce, artist formerly known as Ungoy Food Nipple. I'm still going to say it, God damn it. But of course, thank you all for supporting us. At this point, all of these patrons are from our other production, The Library, the Halo Lorecast. Can't wait for you guys to come check this out once it's out. Looking forward to all of your feedback and support. But this has been a great journey so far.
Yeah.
We're only 4 episodes in.
It's been amazing.
We only got God knows how many to go.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm getting slightly better at this whole podcast thing.
It is getting easier learning how to talk into a mic.
Slowly but surely. But once again, thank you so much for joining us. And come back next week, where we will have a special guest to talk about the Babadook.
Oh, so exciting.
The Babadook. Duke.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us this evening, stranger. If you enjoyed your time with us, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/jumperscape or join the community at discord.gg/jumperscape. We thank you for your listenership and hope you enjoyed.